Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about how to use Landorus-Incarnate in Regulation F. And it should be a fairly simple guide, but guys, I'm going to be honest. 7 years ago, if you guys would have told me that Landorus-Incarnate would be the better Landorus form, I probably would have laughed at you. But anyways, here we are. Landorus-Incarnate, by far the better Landorus form right now. Like I said, going to be straightforward. You're going to be running Earth Power, you're going to be running Sludge Bomb, because they capitalize very, very well off of the Sheer Force ability, especially paired with Life Orb. And for those that may not know, Sheer Force basically, if the move has a secondary effect, that secondary effect basically gets dropped off the move, but it boosts the move's power. So Earth Power, since it would potentially be able to drop Special Defense, will no longer be able to drop Special Defense. However, it will get a 1.3 times boost to its power. And Sheer Force also, with Life Orb, you get another 1.3 boost with the Life Orb, but because you have Sheer Force, it somehow treats Life Orb as a secondary effect. So as long as you're using moves with secondary effects, you basically get another 1.3 boost without having to lose any health, which is phenomenal and by far the superior set. So that's why you're going to see this on pretty much everything I'm going to suggest. You're going to see Earth Power, you're going to see Sludge Bomb, you're going to see Protect, because Landorus really enjoys clicking Protect more often than not. But guys, it's a very straightforward process. There's not too much to talk about in Teras. You're generally going to see something like Poison or Steel. I think those are the best two options. And then you also have Water as like the kind of the third option. I really hate Urshifu. I don't really want to get hit by a Surging Strikes. I've never liked Water because you end up potentially pinning yourself versus Raging Bolt, and Raging Bolt is something that Landorus wants to be beating, and if I have to Tera early, I no longer technically beat the Raging Bolt because of Thunderclap, so that it's a little concerning that way. So I would probably stick to Steel or Poison more consistently than not, but Water is out there as an option. And then you get coverage moves. You've got stuff like Sanseer Storm for big spread damage. You've got Substitute, which is a huge plus, and I think I really like Substitute a lot. I guess Grass Knot you could use. You can Nasty Plot, you can Calm Mind if you want. There are options to set up. I don't like setting up with this piece. It just feels like putting yourself behind a substitute and then spamming Earth Power seems a little bit better than, trying to set up and then spamming Earth Powers, because you do enough damage basically without needing that setup option. And I think treating it as, just that burst damage when you need it is a lot better than treating it as a quote-unquote setup piece. You can run those options, though. I have seen them in the past. I mean, I don't know where you're going to utilize them or get them into position for it, but if you get an option to set up a Nasty Plot on Landorus, I mean, you're probably just going to win. But getting it up consistently seems a little more difficult than you do get Rain Dance and stuff, but you're not going to be using that, guys. Like I said, it's going to be straightforward. This is what we're going to see. So, like I said, straightforward. We're going to go basic of the most basic sets, and it's just going to be 252, guys. There's really not much else to say on this one, right? You want to be fast. You can go Timid or Modest with this, depending on the speed control that you have on your team. If you go fast, right? Timid is nice because you outpace all the base 100s. But if you have a lot of speed control, you could technically go Modest. And, you still hit a pretty decent speed tier, right? Like, you're still outpacing the Adamant Urshifus and all that jazz. The only thing you're not getting is something like, like a Timid Chi-Yu, which, I don't know. Personally, I think when I'm running just a max Landorus, I do personally like going Timid. I do prefer going Timid. It just makes a little bit more sense in terms of I need less setup to get this piece going. And anytime you need less setup to get a piece going, I think it's generally good, or at least should be considered. I like Timid. Modest is super fine as well. There's a huge argument debate on both right now going on. I see the benefits of both, right? Things can live the Timid stuff. It's a lot harder to live the Modest Lando. So if you want a little bit more damage and you're okay being slower, Modest it is. If you want to go faster and you're okay doing a little bit less damage, Timid is the option. I know that's probably the most generic statement you've ever heard, but I do like Tera Poison a lot. I'm going to showcase Poison. This could easily be Steel if you're looking to resist Ice, but I figure on the more aggressive one, Poison makes sense because you're going to want to boost the damage of the Sludge Bomb, as well as getting a pretty solid defensive typing overall. Earth Power is nice. Once again, guys, I'm not going to talk about these two moves. These two moves are going to be here on pretty much every Landorus-Incarnate you're going to play against, or you should be using. So, Sanseer Storm is the one I will talk about. Once again, this is the more aggressive version of the Landorus. You could easily slap on a substitute in this spot. You could easily slap on any of the other moves in this slot as well, and it would still function. This is quite literally a filler slot on whatever you think it needs to be to suit your team the best. And I just put Sandstorms here because it's meant to be the offensive showcase for this Pokemon. It could easily be substitute on a 252. That is not like a question mark. That's not a bad thing. But Sandsear Storm was here. I just wanted to showcase the offensive set. Moving on, you get a little bit more of a bulky Landorus here. Once again, I went Tera Steel on this one. It just has a few better resistances. Steel is overall a better typing as well than Poison, so it's a little bit of a nicer resist that way. You're still resisting the Flutter Mane. You actually get the added benefit of resisting Ice, which I think is very, very large in on Landorus, right? Because you're eating stuff like Ice Beams and Ice Spinners a lot. So if you can tear out of that and reverse the type chart, it tends to be a little bit better on the defensive end of things. Here, because we're so bulky, I think capitalizing off of a substitute or a Calm Mind if you choose to go that route, or a Nasty Plot if you choose to go that route is fair. I think substitute on the bulky ones in general is probably the best way to go, but this can definitely be changed on team specific. Once again, guys, you're not changing the Life Orb, the Earth Power, the Sludge Bomb. Those are going to be here. You'd have to be like have a really good reason to use something other than those three options. I don't even know what the option could be. Like, I'm trying to come up with an example of, oh, you would need to have this in order to not need these moves. But honestly, you just need these moves. This spread is not as bulky as I would like. I feel like you can 100% go bulkier. Now, my only concern with going bulkier is you would have to drop your speed. And I left this kind of up in the air because I wanted to talk about it during the video. And I want to outpace Urshifu. My philosophy when it comes to, at least when I'm starting to test Pokemon, my philosophy is I should be faster than the pieces I'm trying to be faster than, regardless. Now, sometimes that's not always the case because, you know, Urshifu, you know, they run bulky too. So technically you could slow this down, right? You could probably go down to like 138. 130, 140 outpaces Smeargle, but no one's really running Smeargle right now. There are tons of benchmarks to hit. 137 is nice because then you're outpacing Shenpao when it's at -1, right? So there are other benchmarks to hit, right? Depending on your speed control and depending on, you know, how fast and how strong your speed control actually is. If you have Tailwind and you're pretty much getting Tailwind up every game, you could probably keep this around, you know, 135, 137 territory. But if you're reliant on like Icy Wind and Thunder Wave, then I wouldn't really go lower than 150 because you want to outpace those Adamant Urshifus, and like 90% of them, I would say, maybe closer to 80 are Adamant right now. So being able to outpace those without having speed control, potentially in like an end game, and just being able to click Earth Power and finish off get the kill, that's important to me, right? And when I'm first testing a piece, that's kind of the benchmark I would rather hit. Now, once again, if I start testing the team and I realize I am always in Tailwind or I always have an Icy Wind up, right? You can probably get away with going a little slower, adding a little bit more bulk. And the benefit here is you get to only invest 116 Modest. Once again, you can go more. You can probably go a little bit less if you wanted to. But 116 Modest is basically hits the same as Timid. It's actually only 2 points lower. So your rolls are still pretty much the exact same as the Timid one. And you get incredible amounts of bulk. The bulk is currently built to take a Urshifu Tera Water Surging Strikes after I Tera. So basically I would be able to Tera, live the Tera Water Surging Strikes, and punish in return. I don't think that's something that comes up too often. However, I think it's also just, it adds the general bulk that you want from Landorus as well, and that is currently where I sat. And then I just kind of did the bulk into the special defense. You could easily do this down to 20, bring this up a little bit, right? There's room to play around with this spread. Once again, I just kind of sent it. I said, you know what? I don't really want to be slower than 150. 116 felt right. It kind of was that jump point, so I don't know why I would want to be lower. And then I was able to live the calcs that I really wanted to live outside of that. But once again, you can definitely go bulky or you can go less bulky. If you're just kind of taking it, not sure if bulky Lando is right, I think this is a decent one to kind of grab and kind of get a feeling for if bulky Lando is good for you or not. You could technically try to go up to like 153. You could go max speed, right, as well, just to put that out in the universe. And then you're always outpacing Modest TUs as well, which is definitely something to do. So there's definitely room to play around with this spread. But overall, if you're looking for a bulkier piece that's going to survive and still do some damage, this is probably the way to go. And then there's the cursed choice scarf option. I don't like talking about the choice scarf option, just because, like I said at the beginning, the sheer force plus the life orb plus earth power, right? That combination is so good. Yes, you get a nice little speed boost, which does have its benefits, but you lose a lot of the power that you otherwise would have. So it's a little bit of a trade-off if you want speed or power in this case. But I wanted to showcase it regardless. So once again, you're going to see that standard moveset, Earth Power, Sludge Bomb. Those aren't changing. Sandseer Storm also does get the boost as well from Sheer Force. So why not have a spread damage ground type move on your Scarfmon, right? That makes a lot of sense, right? So that's definitely going to be here on your choice scarf variants. And I like U-turn as the last one on my choice scarf variants. Positioning is very good when it comes to having choice scarf mons. It works incredibly well with something like Urshifu because, you know, you're able to U-turn off, or if they have an Urshifu or a Shenpao on their side of the field, you know, you don't want to sit there and take that attack, but maybe you want to break a focus sash. So now you can U-turn, get out of there, or reposition. And overall, I think it's very good for positioning. And one of the benefits of running Choice Scarf on Lando is that, you know, you can get some chip damage and still reposition your board state. And then you can come in later and clean up, let's just say, like an end game. Like if I lead Scarf Lando, it gives me options to switch out while still doing something, right? Whereas with these guys, I can't, if I'm switching out, I've got to actually make the physical switch. And then that becomes potentially, you know, your opponent can potentially take advantage of that. Now, they can take advantage of U-turn if they call you out on clicking it as well. But overall, I think it's a very good position piece. Landorus, guys, like I said, this guide was going to be relatively quick. There's not much to it. Everything is generally the same. You know, Sheer Force, Earth Power, Sludge Bomb. You could go Tera Ground on Scarf. I left it as ground because I figured I haven't shown much, and like I said, you're losing that damage output anyways, right? So going Tera Ground kind of gives you that damage boost back a little bit. And since you're Scarfed, you know, it's not like you can protect and sit on the field very long, right? So why not just send Tera Ground Choice Scarf? Now, you can, once again, on a Scarf, you can easily go Poison, Steel, any of the other ones I've mentioned as well. But overall, Ground, I think, is a funny little option that I did want to mention since I didn't mention it on the other ones. Overall, guys, you're looking to slap a Landorus, probably just take this one, see how it feels. If you have like absurd amounts of speed control, feel free to go modest. Same with the bulky one, you can probably drop that speed as well if you wish. But overall, guys, Landorus super strong. And the key points here are you're just going to be able to break through a lot of the balance teams, especially, you know, the Incin, the Rillaboom cycles. And if you can get a substitute up, which is why I like substitute a little bit more, but you get that substitute up, they can't fake you out anymore. You start pressuring Earth Power, you start pressuring Sludge Bomb, and all of a sudden you don't really need a lot of setup to do big damage, and I think that is a huge opportunity and a huge reason why Landorus is so good right now. Obviously, the success of Raging Bolt, but I'm clearly rambling at this point, guys. Landorus is here. If you're not sure which one to take this basic one. 252, 252 is perfectly fine when it comes to Landorus-Incarnate. There is no real reason to deviate. There are a few reasons, but there's no like, oh my goodness, I need to have this crazy spread when it comes to running Landorus. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this type of content. I am going to try to put out a huge guide as well. There'll be a whole playlist of all the Reg F mods once I eventually get through all of them. But hopefully you guys enjoy this content. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help with the channel. And of course, I really do appreciate it. But with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in another video.